Allah and Gal maintain that the forces driving increased separation include reduced social stigma associated with divorce, the legal simplification of divorce through the introduction of no-fault divorce protocols, and increased female employment. Noteworthy, the association between female employment and marital instability is attributed to conflict of interest between spouses, increased likelihood of women leaving unsatisfying relationships due to economic independence, and these effects outweigh the benefits of having a dual-earner household. Allah and Gal assert that partner consistency, in either holding traditional or egalitarian beliefs, promotes relationship stability. Sandstrom observes that the adoption of egalitarian social norms in Sweden reshaped the modern market in the country, especially through increased female involvement in the workplace, a phenomenon that reduced marital stability. Replacement of the breadwinner homemaker model with the dual-earner model has massively reduced spousal economic interdependence, which has contributed to the reduction in the economic costs of separation. According to Sandstrom, female economic self-sufficiency is associated with increased inclination towards divorce, a phenomenon supported by the increased likelihood of women to file for divorce. Increased divorce rates are not only associated with the gradual fading of the male provider model, but also with economic growth that has increased resource availability for individuals, thereby raising the possibility of self-sufficiency without the need to form union. The contributions of economic transitions to the rising divorce have been reinforced by changes around social values, attitudes, and behaviors between the 40s and the 70s. The social changes cover increased permissiveness, secularization of societies, and emphasis on individual freedom and self-actualization. Sandstrom further argues that the destruction of family structures was advanced by coupling individual freedom with increased government investment in social welfare. Combining economic changes, emphasis on self-actualization, and social security has really undermined the need for families. Yodanis, using data from the International Social Survey program that examined divorce rates in 22 countries, examined whether divorce cultures are linked to enhanced or diminished equality in unions. The author suggests that there is a relationship between divorce culture on a national level and increased marital equality, thus supporting the enhanced over the diminished equality hypothesis. The enhanced equality hypothesis suggests that women use the possibility of divorce to advocate for more egalitarian unions, while the diminished equality hypothesis points to the opposite direction of men using the threat of divorce to frustrate women's equality-oriented efforts. Countries with equal distribution of work between men and women in unions report increased acceptance and practice of divorce. However, Yodanis maintains that the effect of the divorce threat on the division of housework is minimal, consistent with other findings indicating that couples' ideologies and women's resource contribution do not affect the unequal distribution of housework. The effect of divorce threats on men's and women's negotiations in unions is more mediated by cultural and social as opposed to individual factors. Thus, the threat of divorce effect in relationship equality-related negotiations is remote within predominantly traditional societies. The nationalist analysis of divorce shifts its perception from a micro-level behavior or experience to an indication of cultural and social change. Based on the findings of the study, some of the potential benefits of divorce include the attainment of more equal unions, the reduction of spousal violence, physical and psychological safety for women and children when they can leave, and reduced overdependence on the breadwinner homemaker model. Stark and Matizak argue that the relationship between female employment and the risk of divorce shifted from insignificant to positive around 1989. The authors maintain that economic transformation arising from female employment was accompanied by increased likelihood of employed women ending marriages due to minimal dependence on the marriage or their husbands. Unemployed women are far less likely to leave unhappy marriages. Besides, women on parental leave are less likely to disrupt marriages compared to their working counterparts. Donalans, Pons and Gangle suggest that gender roles that define masculinity and femininity significantly shape how relationships end. The authors analyze the extent to which male breadwinning norms affect the relationship between men's unemployment and partner separation. The importance of male breadwinner norms is strong when the identity is most important, that is, among married couples, with instances of cohabitation presenting a weak relationship. The contextual aspect of the impact of male breadwinning roles on separation is based on the fact that marriages heighten gender expectations and institutions strongly incentivize gender division of labor for married compared to cohabiting couples. The relationship between male unemployment and the increased risk of divorce is stronger in societies where male breadwinning expectation is deeply embedded into the underlying social and cultural fabric. High relative market advantage and income among men reduces the risk of separation, which is in accordance with the financial stress theory, which suggests that income uncertainties increase the risk of marital conflict. Sayer and colleagues examined the predictors of men and women leaving unions. The study found that both partners are likely to leave when the man is unemployed. Better than average marital satisfaction for wives reduces the risk of either partner exiting the union. Employment for women who report below average marital satisfaction increases the risk of dissolution. The institutionalist view of marriage suggests that women's employment undermines the rationale behind marriage, irrespective of the emotional quality. This phenomenon is not based on the fact that female employment violates traditional norms, but rather, because it reduces or eliminates the specialization gains associated with marriage. The institutionalist view also suggests that unions in which the woman is earning and the man is not receive little to no external support due to the violation of traditional norms. The bargaining or exchange theory suggests that female employment does not affect marital stability if the woman is satisfied. Women's use of access to resources to leave unions rather than bargaining for change is based on the slow rate at which men are taking up traditionally feminine roles. Wives' employment does not impact husbands' decisions to dissolve the relationship, but men's employment motivates women to stay. The latter is founded on the support of both institutionalist and bargaining theories. Women leave unemployed men because they fail to provide the economic incentive for them to stay and violate traditional gender roles. Male independence in the bargaining theory suggests that unhappy men are likely to leave unsatisfying unions. Amato and Booth suggest that on the one hand, marital quality declines when wives drop traditional views for egalitarian ones. On the other hand, marital quality increases when men or husbands adopt more egalitarian views. Women who hold egalitarian views are more likely to be unhappy than their traditional counterparts, while egalitarian men are more likely to be involved in marriage. Wilcox and Nock argue that happy marriages are characterized by a combination of traditional and egalitarian views. The authors maintain that marital quality has declined over the recent past, a phenomenon that is linked to women being egalitarian and men being traditional. Noteworthy, egalitarian women are more upset with unequal distribution of housework and received lower levels of emotion work from their husbands because of the increased likelihood of initiating conflict. In other words, women's rising expectations of equality reduces men's emotional investment in marriage. Wilcox and Nock support the institutional model of marriage in arguing that shared church attendance and the normative support for marriage increases women's marital happiness. This argument explains the association of divorce risks with declines in religiosity and liberal attitudes towards divorce, premarital sex, and extramarital sex. Departures from the breadwinner homemaker model reduce marital quality because of the mismatch between male practices and female gender role attitudes. Wilcox and Nock find no evidence for the companionate model of marriage, that is, women in egalitarian marriages are not exactly happier. Wives' traditionalism or homemaking is associated with greater male emotional investment, due to reduced likelihood of conflict initiated by the wife. Egalitarian women who are unhappy with the distribution of housework are less satisfied with husbands' emotion work because they are more critical of it, thereby dampening men's emotion work. The paradox in this case is the fact that the popularity of companionate marriage ideals has reduced the prevalence of companionate marriage practice. Weishart examined the effects of earnings on relationship quality using the specialization theory, which suggests that partner specialization improves relationship quality through the stability that arises from complementary gender roles. The lack of marital stability or increased divorce risk due to deviation from traditional roles is linked to investment in paid labor promoting independence and reducing the reliance on complementary roles, as well as poor labor divisions causing tensions. As wives' income approach their husbands, there is more equality in housework, with this equality diminishing when wives' income surpasses their husbands'. The findings of the study demonstrated that the specialization model is not applicable for same-sex relationships, thereby suggesting that the effect of earnings on relationship quality is dependent upon the gender norms that characterize heterosexual relationship. Disentangling earning power from gender, as is the case in same-sex relationships, equality, especially in earnings, promotes stability, while earnings equality increases the risk of separation in heterosexual couples. Killewald examined how spouses' division of labor, overall financial resources, and wives' independence relate to the risk of divorce. The author points out that the second half of the 20th century was characterized by an increased rate female college completion beyond men's rates, a rise in female participation in the labor force, and tremendous narrowing of the wage gap. Changes in the social and economic context of marriage have altered the terms of engagement away from the need to do gender. Killewald's study uncovered that male unemployment was associated with increased risk of divorce for unions formed before 1975. Neither wives' full-time employment nor household work is related to the risk of divorce, and wives' homemaking expectations have gradually eroded over time, while husband breadwinning norms still persist. The fading of women's homemaking expectations and the persistence of men's breadwinning requirements is associated with the feminist movement that has constantly talked of equality around the home as relating to the distribution of housework, which is strictly within the home and not outside, while completely ignoring the distribution of breadwinning responsibilities. For instance, cooking is an example of routine housework expected to be completed by women, while the purchasing of groceries is part of men's providing expectations. But when saying housework is unequal or should be compensated, the sole focus is on preparing the meal, while completely ignoring the purchase of grocery. While women wanting a breadwinning man is largely praised as her knowing her worth, men wanting a homemaking woman is almost criminal, and that is what is preached as equality, with any questions asked being labeled as being fearing empowered women. Wives' employment destabilized marriages in the wake of egalitarianism, but this effect's gradually faded over time while the positive association between male employment and marital stability has remained consistent over time. According to Killerwald, wives' employment has been one of the most notable ways in which gender has been undone, with wives' average housework dropping from 3.9 times that of husbands in 1975 to 1.7 times in 2010. However, male breadwinning norms have remained more persistent over the same time compared to female homemaking requirements. Thus, male breadwinning remains significant for marital stability, while neither female employment nor completion of housework affect marital stability. Qian and Sayer examine the impact of gender ideologies and division of housework on marital satisfaction in China, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. Generally, women reported lower marital satisfaction than men, did more housework than men, and were more likely to report holding egalitarian gender ideologies. Chinese and Taiwanese couples were more satisfied with their egalitarian marriages and had less egalitarian ideologies. Qian and Sayer report that they did not find associations between sharing housework and marital satisfaction for Chinese women because most of them did not view disproportional housework as unfair provided that their spouse fully attended to breadwinning roles. Urban China presents the highest level of gender equality, the least need of gender specialization because of women's economic opportunities, and married women show less support for egalitarian gender roles because they have greater incentives for doing gender. Housework is also not associated with marital satisfaction for Japanese women who complete over 90% of housework because they are more aware of the marriage package, married women's low attachment to the labor force, and divorce bears serious consequences for the women and their children. Korean and Japanese women face similar barriers to employment, but Japanese women are more likely to be employed while Korean women are more likely to work longer hours, hence being more likely to initiate work-marriage conflicts arising from unequally sharing housework. Dual-earner households are more fundamental in Taiwan, and as such, women are more likely to express dissatisfaction with unequal share of housework. Taiwanese wives with egalitarian gender ideologies express the least marital satisfaction. The relative share of housework presents a negative relationship with marital satisfaction for Japanese and Korean men, as well as Korean and Taiwanese women. Japanese and Korean husbands doing large shares of housework report lower marital satisfaction because their income is sufficient to sustain the household, long working hours intensify family conflict, and cultural beliefs do not favor female employment. Thus, a large share of housework violates the society's traditional norms. Husbands' abilities to be sole breadwinners is limited for families in China and Taiwan, thus married women have to be involved in full-time employment for sustainability in families. According to Dillaway and Broman, overall, women as a group report lower marital satisfaction compared to men regardless of the division of household labor, with this satisfaction being lower among black women compared to white women. This phenomenon, as the authors argue, challenges the argument that women experience more marital satisfaction if men are increasingly involved in housework. The finding that black women are less satisfied with marriage compared to white women is linked to black women placing less value on marriage because of the structural constraints relating to a smaller marriageable pool of black men and the related economic considerations. White women also have more opportunities in the workplace, and as such, are more likely to report satisfaction in the workplace and in the home. Black men involved in housework are less likely to report high marital satisfaction compared to their white counterparts, indicating that male marital satisfaction is linked to race and the amount of housework. Dillaway and Broman explain that black married men in dual-earner relationships, compared to their white counterparts, report greater marital satisfaction when they are involved in less housework owing to the greater economic security of having a breadwinning wife. The authors suggest that higher satisfaction among blacks compared to whites could be associated with white men being less accustomed to the threat arising from recent inclusion of white women in the labor force, thereby also making them providers. White men's identities have largely been constructed around their abilities to provide, hence being more uneasy about the participation of white women in the labor force. The authors attribute the relationship between increased involvement in housework and marital dissatisfaction among black men to their disadvantaged position in the modern labor force. Black women have always worked and taken up the second shift in performing housework until the wake of second-wave feminism, that was mostly led by white women who had just joined the labor force. Then it all went south.